Brian Walsh. You are our Chief Visionary Officer, and I'm so excited for this segment because it is called the Visionary Corner. How do you feel about that term, Brian?
It's still something I am not even used to. You know, the fact that we have this amazing team from all over the world and we're doing these amazing things, and it's all based on a vision I had. I mean, it's a very common shared vision amongst us now, but it's a beautiful feeling and a beautiful responsibility as well, I think.
Oh, I love that answer. And I think you embody it. And Brian, where I really want us to start with a segment is the most important question. We're about to do the largest summit in the company's history. And I am so thrilled, and the whole company's excited. When you reflect back on where you started and where you are now, like what are some of the biggest realizations and lessons you've learned?
Sure. It's a big one. I think the biggest realization is always, as I say to people around me all the time, is that, it's not as much what we do as much as it is who we become. And I think, success, and a lot of people, they might be able to absorb this intellectually, but it's difficult to really understand until you've actually experienced it. But success is a manifestation. It's something that you get rewarded with by becoming the best version of yourself. And I mean, this is a kind of philosophy we live by as well. And if I look back, because I always think I'm a bad example, I'm 51 now. It's like, it took me so long before I can turn around and say, okay, I'm getting the things right. And I sometimes go, well, actually, I don't want to say that to people because I don't want people to think it's going to take them 20 years to figure it out. And there is no timeline. In other words, it doesn't take that long. It takes as long as it takes for you to become that version of yourself that starts to allow the success to flow. So we know that it needs to be based on true values. It needs to be based on a vision. It needs to be based on something that you're really connected with and that you really believe in it, that really authentically is you. But then we have to find what I call those blocks. Because it's one thing when we get clear about who we are and what we want to do, but it's another thing when we don't realize that we inevitably then also block the flow that starts to make that really become the way it can be. So to like host an event now with 100,000 registrants is insane. If you had told me that 2 years ago, I'm like, that's crazy. But, if I think about it, like at the beginning of last year, we set certain goals. And I think our goal was to get 50,000 into an event, which we managed to do in June. And we averaged about 40,000 per event. So it's just pushing that boundary and, pushing that. There should be no limit or no ceiling per se. But I think the key thing is you have to have that absolute intention and that absolute belief in what you're doing in order for it to manifest. And you have to remove whatever those blocks are for you to manifest the environment and the context in order for it to happen as well. And so, it's hard to just say to people, it's ABC, we're just doing the right things, because it really is not just myself, but I mean, our leadership and many people in our team who have grown so substantially as individuals that the collection of us are able to just create these kind of miracles and increase and improve and get bigger and do things better and make a bigger impact. And I think that's what really drives it.
Oh, I love that, Brian. And you were speaking about, those obstacles that you had to overcome personally. And you've been in business for so many years. And now it's actually an accumulation of all that experience you have. And you've created this incredible company. For you personally, when it comes to the business context, what do you feel are those critical blocks that you faced and that you find that other entrepreneurial people have faced?
So I think in the tangible side of things, one of the things is the focus and understanding that business is about profitability. So many of us start a business because we have a vision, we want to make an impact, we want to make a difference, be it on a product, be it in an industry, be it to people, which is a kind of very altruistic, way of looking at things. And then we tend to think, well, the universe owes it to us now because we're good people, that things must just work. Well, as we get older, we learn that it doesn't work quite like that, and there's no one out there that's going to do stuff for you. So then you move towards actually, well, how do we create something that's going to be impactful on a sustainable level? Because we've often had little wins in our lives, but how do we get a sustainable thing to work? And I think the key thing is, our coach that we work with, Jeff, and at our executive level and our senior team, really emphasizes the need to be profitable. And a lot of people have this issue because they think people come before profit, but you can't make an impact if you cannot run a business that doesn't have to chase money in order to survive. The minute we go into survival mode, which is what 99% of small businesses do, that intention that we have to make an impact really falls away. Unintentionally, so to speak, but we're out there trying to get a deal because we're trying to pay the bills instead of out there trying to get the deal that makes the right sense in the right way and has the greatest impact on the people that we're trying to serve. So it really, from a tangible point of view, that one factor is really, really critical. And I actually wrote a book called Addicted to Profit in 2013. I think as I recognized it, and again, I'm slow at getting things right, so it took me years before I could actually manifest that as a whole, but it's so, so important. But then on the other side, again, it comes down to that, that intention. We've had an intention to create this kind of outcome for many years. And even in the times when it seemed absolutely impossible and we weren't making profit and we were struggling as a business, the intention stayed there. And so again, when the leadership evolves, because everything revolves around that as a business owner, you are the kind of make or break of that business. Tony Robbins says we're the chokehold of that business. And that's often the case because our inability to develop the confidence to become the person that can actually attract that flow of success into your life is the single biggest thing that prevents that business from materializing something successfully. It doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what industry. And I don't entertain these kind of stories about, it's the industry, it's the government, it's the pandemic and all this kind of stuff, because that's rubbish. Entrepreneurs do the most ridiculous, incredible things. They come up with products that people laughed at a while ago. Can you see Kitty up there? Good job. But, they come up with ideas that people think are crazy and are never going to work, and they actually make them work. So I don't want people to buy into the excuses of the circumstances and what's going on around them. I want you to always reflect internally and go, how do I become the person that makes this a reality? And that is not, Candace, it's not a kind of hoo-ha motivational kind of process. It's actually a very deep process. As a common friend of ours, James McNeil, often says, it's what you let go, not what you can pick up, that really makes the difference. And so for me, it was something very personal where, as much as my highest value is connection, I wasn't allowing people to effectively come into my life. Now, how can I build a business that is the context around connection when I'm sort of keeping everyone at an arm's length distance because of my fear of being let down or hurt or abandonment, whatever the case might be? And so it became a very personal thing. And even though you might know that consciously, you have to go and dig deep down as to where it comes from. And it's only when you start to release that context, as you well know through all your work with forgiveness, that the world starts to open up for you. So, if you look at it, if you had to say two things, the tangible, you got to become profit-centric. Don't go in there and be that idiot just trying to survive, because you'll never get it right. You have to become a highly profitable business in order to make a massive impact. And from a personal level, you have to go and sort your SHI, what else. You have to go and dig deep and find out who you are and what are the things that are holding you back. And it's a challenging thing because you're going to challenge your identity. But when you become that person and you have the right models and the right context out there, all the other stuff is easy, as in, easy to learn, easy to find out how you should do it. What you should do is not the challenge. Who you become is really the cornerstone as to whether you'll achieve that success. So, I'm very blessed now to witness that in my life and through the people I work with. But there's a part of me that also is like, I wish people didn't have to suffer and go through that much in order to get there. But maybe that's what it's about. And I think everyone's got to go on their journey, and no one's going to do it for you. So, get off your behind and go out there and make it happen.
No one's going to do it for you. And that is so factual. I love that piece that you just shared with us, Brian, because I think already that for a lot of people listening, that might be the paradigm shift that they're looking for. And as we wrap up the first episode of the Visionary Corner, I want to ask you, Brian, if you could go back to the previous version of yourself that was just starting your entrepreneurial journey as Brian Walsh that you are today, what is the one greatest piece of advice or thing that you'd want yourself to know?
I think it's never stop believing. I know it sounds really cliche. We live by the philosophy in this business that people's lives are so much more than they currently illustrate. And most people that come into our space looking to improve themselves, they hang on to an understanding that even doesn't matter how tough it's been, how long it's been tough, they know there's a better outcome there. They know there's a better life. They're just not always sure how to get there. And I think when it comes to business or any aspect in life, to have that conviction and to say, to get to that place, as Tony Robbins would call, to raise that standard where it's like enough is enough, and you're going to find a way or make a way to make it happen, is such an important thing. And, if Stephen and I were talking, Stephen's our chief operating officer, and, he's largely, part of the credit of how we managed to get this business to work. But the two of us, if you had been interviewing us 2 or 3 years ago, the reality was terrible. It was terrible. The companies were falling apart. We had massive debt, like everything was a mess, And to think that we sit here now, coming through the pandemic, which in a way was a trigger for us to change the way we did things, but it's amazing. And so, I remember those intentions being there, but there was that little voice in your head going, oh, I don't know how this is going to happen. It seems like a pipe dream. One of our other executives once said, you always say these things, but I never really believe them because they never really happen. I remember a few years ago, now she says to me like, okay, I'm believing now, And I think the key is just don't give up. If you know something is real to you and important to you, there's always a way. And, the more you can learn not to blame circumstances and other people around you, and to take the inner control and power and just go and carve a way through however you got to do it, the more likely you are to succeed. So, it's persistence, it's perseverance, it's that ability to go through those emotional challenges, all those doubts, all those challenges, and keep pushing yourself through with conviction to actually receive and get to a result that's going to make a difference. And so that's probably the advice. I mean, I took it in hindsight, because that's what happened. But if it's important to know that there is a light at that end of the tunnel, and that light can become something beautiful and really amazing in your life and the people that you serve's life.
Oh, I love it, Brian. And in conclusion, as we close our first Visionary Corner, what is your objective with the Visionary Corner? Why are you doing this? And what do you hope people gain from these episodes?
I think in a way, it's so different because I was a teacher for many years, and there's a kind of ego to teaching because, you're telling people how to do things and what have you. And I, for many years, I was teaching people how to succeed when I wasn't successful. So it has an ego on the other side that's asking you questions in your head. But it's beautiful now because I don't want to teach for any other reason or want to share for any other reason than it is just to hopefully impart and inspire something that gets people to move to the next level. So I guess, the objective here is we're going to start sharing what we're doing that's achieving success. And that's it, not trying to say theoretically, this is what we think you should do. It's just really a case of, look, this is what we're doing. This is what I believe is shifting from a personal perspective and what's shifting from an organizational perspective. And hopefully that'll inspire people to realize, and I don't know, Candace, people look at you when you're successful and they don't see the many, many years of struggle and pain. They just see the outcome. And, you almost want to sort of do one of those kind of 2-minute flash things of your past to show all the suffering and pain that you've been through, all that depression and misery and, like in order to get to a place where you're really making a difference. So hopefully very authentically and without any ego attached to it, we can just share with people and inspire people, with what we're doing, what's working for us as a business and organization and personally, and hopefully that'll encourage people to do the same kind of thing on their journey.
Oh, thank you, Brian. And I look forward to all the episodes we're going to release.
Me too. And thank you for making this a reality. I think it's a great, great opportunity.